So the book I chose is I'm Not Your Perfect Mexican Daughter by Erica Sanchez. I read this book probably just over a year ago. And I loved it right away, and it was interesting because I actually, before I read it, my sister-in-law had sent me a text message saying, hey, your niece just read this book and I think you'll like it. And my niece is I think she's a sophomore this year, so she would have been a high school freshman. And I just thought that was really cool, and I'm like, yeah, I'll definitely read this book. And I immediately fell in love with it. And I think the thing I love about it most is this is the type of book, and I've been a reader my entire life. But I never saw myself in those books. They were just entertaining books to me. And so when I read that, it was just, I don't know, it was just perfect because I related a lot to the main character, Julia. And while I didn't have a sister, and she has a sister who she believes is the perfect Mexican daughter that her parents envisioned, she realizes through this process that her sister was not the perfect daughter that her parents thought, and she was constantly trying to live up to this person that wasn't even who everyone thought she was. And it talks a lot about just the cultural pressure of being like a first generation Mexican American, and so that's I'm a first generation Mexican American. I'm also an only daughter, so while I was not living up to an older sister or anything like that, I still was also kind of living up to those cultural pressures. So I saw myself a lot in that character, and I really identified with that, and see myself really looking at reading books now that I wish I would have had back then. And even though they're young adult novels, I still love them. I still get so much out of them, and I just think they're amazing. I mentioned those books that I kind of grew up reading that I didn't see myself in. I think the first time I saw myself in a story, I was a freshman in college, went to St. Mary's, true story. And I was in this tandem English humanistic studies class, and I read a book, and it was called Latina Stories from the Borderlands, something along those lines, and there was an essay by Sandra Cisneros called Only Daughter. And she is also I'm one of 6, and she's one of 7, and she was the only daughter, and she grew up in Chicago, and I grew up in Northwest Indiana, and so that was the first time I saw myself in a piece of lit. And a few years later, as a junior, I went to see her speak at a conference in Chicago. Got there early, sat in the second row, got to meet her, and in the 30 seconds I had with her, I told her my entire life story. And I told her I was a writing major, which I was a writing major, graduated with a degree in writing, and she gave me her card, which I still have in my pocket. I carry it with me. And she's like, hey, when you write your book, let me know. So I still have not written my book yet, but I still have her card that I carry with me.